Roberts.
Yo, what's shaking AC?
It's so funny that when you think about it, that is the line that you have to start with. Like it, it can't go away. It has to just be the way that you start these rants.
Okay. Oh, I mean, I got no problem with that. I mean, I don't have to start with it. I like to start with it.
I mean, it works. It just gets everybody, okay, what's happening here, right? And then
Bro.
and then I notice when you are at conferences and things, people walk around, yo, Brewski, what's shaking?
Yeah,
Or
it's become a brand, right? It's become a first impression.
right, right. Well, exactly. Or they come up to me and they say, yo, what's shaking AC? Which tells me that they're listening to our rants.
Yeah.
But yeah, so what's on your mind today?
Well, it's kind of serendipitous that you brought that up because my mind has been
Mm,
around first impressions lately,
mm.
and how important they are. And somebody was talking to me about like putting stuff out on TikTok, right? TikTok's extended the amount of time you can post. It used to be like 30 seconds and they extended to 60, then it was like a minute, then 10 minutes, now it's 15. I think they've allowed a half hour,
Oh,
because
I didn't like that.
like Much Music, it was this big Canadian MTV used to have a TV show. Now it's solely on TikTok, so they can release full episodes on TikTok. Anyways, point was that people doom scroll so much that you have 2 seconds to grab their attention. And I was like, all right, I get it. And then I started thinking about other ads and how much time you have to grab the attention. And then I started thinking about people and what happens when you first meet somebody, whether it's over the phone or in person. You have X amount of time, maybe 30 seconds, to make that first impression, right? Um, and that I mean caters a lot to franchising, especially when you're vetting people, Ultimately, we're all being judgmental. You're vetting somebody on their first impression, you're judging them, right? Um, so I think it's really important to take care of, and I'll put this in air quotes, yourself, because not only physically yourself, it's also how you present yourself verbally, the things that you say, all that sort of stuff, because people are judging you. And for anyone out there who thinks people aren't judging you, or people who are judging you aren't your type of people, you're wrong. I'm sorry. Hate me for it. You're wrong.
Okay, okay. You're just like foot like line in the sand, foot down.
Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, this relates, I guess I'd say this relates, of course, like you said, to, well, I think you said this, to a prospective franchisee as a franchisor, and also when they meet other franchisees, people are gonna be thinking like, is this person gonna be a good representative of the brand? And then actually you just made me think we should talk a little bit too about how that applies to people that support franchisees, field coaches and people in the field.
Yeah.
But starting with the prospect, the potential franchisees
Yeah.
that you meet, what are some of the things that you're looking for, or what have you seen?
Well, listen, I mean, everyone has questions that they ask, what would you do in this scenario, all that sort of stuff. But everyone loves to also meet their prospects. I had a prospect come in that, had pretty decent answers to questions. But when he came in, first 30 seconds was immediately turned off. All right. This guy came in wearing track pants, a t-shirt that was like stained and dirty. He had a gigantic pot belly that was hanging out from below the t-shirt. He had some raggedy jacket. His hair was so greased, like it looked like he hadn't showered in a day. Had like 5 o'clock. It was like an 8 o'clock shadow. The hair was a mess. And I was like, man, you look like trash. If this is how you take care of yourself, how are you going to take care of your investment? How are you going to take care of our investment in you and our coach's desire to work with you, all that sort of stuff? Immediately, right away. No thanks. No thanks. Franchising is about building a brand, and a franchisee is a steward of a brand. I need to have confidence in this. I am judging you as soon as you walk through the door. You failed. Sorry, my friend.
Okay, I was just gonna say, 'cause- okay, just the views expressed by the other participants at the Age and Rob Rants Roundtable are solely expressed by the person that said, I'm not a word that, I'm just clarifying, because that's a little bit intense, and I'm not gonna exactly agree with or support that level of the way you described that.
Well, I mean, you got to understand that your other franchisees are also looking towards you to protect the brand, right? When somebody's doing something that's like against the brand, franchisor, one of the things you always say is like, well, how would you feel if somebody else was doing this and damaging the brand on your behalf and damaging your investment, right? So the franchisor plays a big role in that. And that kind of goes right into field coaching, right? When you're hiring a field coach, you're expecting them to be professional, to have, valuable input. They're expecting the franchisee to show up on time and be engaged, because people will make predisposed notions about who you are. And if they make the wrong one, and now you have an uphill battle to try to change that.
Well, and I guess what also in your case, or I mean, not just your case, in your example there, it also just it depends on the brand, the situation, the culture, the brand standards, and what I'm hearing is that those things weren't a fit for your brand standards, and then you would worry that that person would represent the brand that way when they would be a franchisee. So and yeah, so great point about the field coaches as well. I think it's a field coaches struggle a lot as it is with credibility with franchisees, especially when or mostly when they have not owned a business or that business in particular, I should say.
Yeah.
The franchisees very commonly will say things like, well, how do you really know? You're not doing this right now. You've never run, you may have worked in the flagship location or the one of the company owned locations, but do you really know? So yeah, I think it's a reminder that people and I don't you're again you're a little more intense with how you're putting this. I wouldn't necessarily go so far as to go people are judging you. I don't know if I fully we can agree to disagree. That's what it's a rant, right? I would say that people are also just subconsciously assessing whether they align with you or not, and
That's
if
the same thing.
somebody.
That's the same thing. They're judging you.
Sure, it's just different wording, a little bit less intense. And so somebody that maybe doesn't align with or just speaking of franchisees and field coaches, I think building trust, part of building trust is the empathy, is the showing I understand you or I can relate to you.
Mhm.
And when you're so different, then that can also be a problem. It's making me think a little bit about when I was supporting franchisees and my being young, especially if I could have been like, screw it, I'm gonna dress young and I'm gonna act young and I'm just gonna prove to them that I still can do this job. Or I could kind of try to meet them where they're at and say to the friend, like not say to the franchisee, but show up thinking, okay, like I need to be professional here because I want them to trust me and I want to show them, that I'm more like them than they think. Right.
Yeah.
So that first impression, and you're right that, I would argue that first impression, I know there's all kinds of studies about this, so I'm not arguing any of that, any of the research or anything, but I'm pretty sure that you can overcome a first impression. It's just not easy. So
Yeah.
if I meet somebody and I have a bad first impression, they could win me over or vice versa. Might be able to win them over if I do the right things, but it just takes so much more effort.
Yeah. More time too, you know. If you can nail it right off the bat, then you can get down to business, right?
Yeah. And I think when it comes to business and especially in a franchise, first impressions and the way things are when people walk in the door, I mean, it's just such a risk that if you're not on brand and you're not, having a good first impression, that the customer walking in the door is going to think good example is at restaurants when you see a dirty bathroom or restroom and you're like, oh, is this like indicative of what the kitchen looks like?
Right.
Right.
Yeah, that could be a phrase we can use. Check out the washroom to see what the kitchen's like in franchising.
There you go. And for the Americans, check out the restroom
Right,
to see
right,
what the kid,
right.
because they'd be like, "What's a washroom?" I'm just kidding. No, they know. I'm totally having fun. Okay, well, excuse
Ready to
me.
wrap it up?
I'm ready. Hopefully that was clear enough to everybody. We had a little bit of a different way of saying it, but we meant the same thing, kind of.
Right, right. Okay. Three, two, one. Go
Go
be
be
awesome.